Hi, I'm Susan Shaner with Sage Leadership Strategies, and I'm your host today of Community Forum. And I have the great pleasure to have with me Michael Rosenbaum, who is a hypnotherapist and healer. Welcome, Michael.
Hi, good to be here.
Nice to have you. I hope I pronounced your name correctly.
Close enough.
Okay, all right. First of all, for those in our audience who don't know what hypnotherapy is, can you give a brief explanation as to what it is?
Well, there's a lot of, people have a lot of strange ideas about it, but it's really just kind of an altered state of consciousness, a relaxed state where you can access the inner parts of your mind, which are the subconscious, unconscious, and superconscious parts of your mind. Really anything not your conscious mind would be considered a hypnotic state. And a hypnotic state, people go in and out of hypnotic states all the time. When you daydream, hypnotic state. When you're driving down the road and you zone out for a minute or two, hypnotic state.
So is it like going into more like your right brain or very relaxed state?
Both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So can you just define the difference between the subconscious, superconscious, and unconscious? It sounds very Freudian, kind of, you know,
Okay.
People might think it, right?
Well, the inner mind, I lump them together as the inner mind. The subconscious controls your body processes, so all the chemicals and things that are secreted in your body. The unconscious is called the unconscious because it's a little deeper, lower than the conscious mind, so it's a little harder to access. People have less access to it normally. And the superconscious mind really controls more of the spiritual memories and things. So when I do past life regression with people, and I do journeys to find out who you are as a spiritual being, that would begin to use the unconscious and superconscious minds.
So does people sense of like their connection to God or just something, nature, or something bigger than themselves? Or,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So for some people that might think past life regression, woohoo, what would you say about that? People are like, whoa, what's that about? I don't know if I believe in that. What would you say about that?
Well, to me, it's very logical that your consciousness goes beyond just this body. There have been many, many books written about people who have had near-death experiences or been clinically dead for 10 minutes or 20 minutes. And they report they have an experience. Their experience didn't end because their body was quote-unquote dead or their brain stopped. And they say they stepped out of their body, they looked down at their body, they saw a light, they heard a voice, they got some communication, said to come back.
That gets verified by other people in the room, so you have to wonder, right?
Well, what was verified by other people in the room was that this person was clinically dead and all of a sudden they're having an experience. And people have written books asking, lots of people have had those experiences. Is there any similarity in what they're saying? And apparently there is.
Yeah.
So to me, I feel like our consciousness and who we are is much bigger than just the physical body. The physical body is the clothes that you wear this time around. That's the way I look at it.
So for you, you're saying it's just a very logical thing.
It is.
It's very, of course, it's very logical. I mean, I have read Brian Weiss's book, Many Lives, Many Masters, and in that book, it's fascinating to read his case studies, where he was an atheist and didn't believe in any of this stuff and wasn't even looking for it, and he was just doing regular hypnosis, thinking he was taking somebody back to maybe their childhood, and they went somewhere else.
You know, and that happens. I've taken hundreds of people on past life regressions, but often when I just do a regression process with somebody,
like earlier in their life.
Yeah, I just say go back to the source of whatever the issue we're working on, and some percentage of the time, maybe 10 or 15%, people just spontaneously go back to another lifetime, and they start describing something, you know, they're a different gender, it's a different time period.
Yeah.
And we work with it. And my point of view about it, whether you believe in past lives or not, is irrelevant to the work that I do because it's therapeutic in terms of you finding something out and shifting a pattern. So if you want to look at it saying it's just like an analogy of something or symbolic of something, you still get the same result.
Whether it's actually literally true or not.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's, to me, that's irrelevant.
So it doesn't matter. You don't get into any of that. Yeah. So how did you come to this work? And how is it related? Is it related at all to like your own healing journey?
Well, everything that I do with people has been done on me. So I know the experience. And one of the beautiful things I like about being in this field is that you're always doing your own work. So you're always evolving and learning new things and feeling better and having a more uplifting life because you're working on all these things. It's your job to do that, because as a therapist that's working with someone, the deeper I can go inside myself is the deeper I can go with you.
Yeah.
The person I'm working with is only going to be willing to work at the level that I'm willing to go.
Because you don't really know the terrain if you haven't been there.
Right.
So how could you lead somebody through something?
And if somebody picks up some fear or something that I'm feeling about the experience they'll have, they'll shut their experience down.
Because they sense it.
They sense it. They might not consciously sense it, but they sense it.
It's that inner mind.
What?
Through the inner mind.
Through the inner mind.
Right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
So,
anyway, I actually started on this journey with meditation. So I'm a big meditation person. I've been doing that for over 25 years. And I started having some experiences when I was meditating, some energetic experiences in my body and so on. And somebody said, well, maybe you ought to study energy healing. Well, what's energy healing? Energy healing is working with the electrical magnetic field around the body. And when I started doing that...
So what happened? You had an experience where you were sensing different kinds of energy? Is that what happened?
Yeah, energy flowing through my body. My body would get really hot. My hands would get really hot. And I began to have these experiences from meditating. And so they were pleasant. I had no idea what it was. And I had some friends who were also meditators, and they said, why don't you read this book called Hands of Light by Barbara Brennan?
Okay.
And see what you think. So I read it. I was very taken by it, and I decided to study with her. I liked her course because it was a 4-year course.
That's intensive.
Yeah, and I
That's
felt
like college.
You're right, like college.
Yeah.
This is basically an unregulated field. So how do you know this person's genuine? You can take a weekend and all of a sudden you're, an energy healer.
Yeah, well, that's what happens with Reiki.
Right. So I've never studied Reiki. I have total respect for Reiki, but for me, I needed more than a weekend to feel like I knew something. So this was a 4-year course that taught you about the energy field, how to work with it in your own processes. And at the end of that, I felt really clear about how to work with people. But then that led me somewhere else, as it turned out, because as I started working with people, I found that a certain amount of people blocked the energy that I was offering them, that I learned. Now, I thought that was really interesting, because they were paying me to do this work with them, yet they were blocking it.
So what was that about?
Not consciously.
They didn't really want to go there. Scary.
Yes. Well, I asked about it.
What?
I said,
so you said, I noticed you're blocking it. What's that about?
I said, we're working on your solar plexus here. Why don't you tell me what your experience is in your solar plexus? And
so for people in the audience that might not know, it's right here.
Right in the center of your body. It's one of the energy centers. And they said, well, it's kind of like a brick wall in there. I said, oh, really?
That's why you're getting a block.
What's on the other side of the brick wall? Fear.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. So I began to understand that people were blocking energy because they had an emotional problem that they were hiding from themselves. That's why the block was there.
Yeah.
Well, in my energy school, we didn't learn processes how to deal with that, except energetically. We didn't know, we weren't therapists, so I wasn't sure how to deal with it.
How to process that with somebody.
So one of my things that I tell myself and other people is that look out there in life, and whatever life hands you, there's a message there. So the message to me was I need to learn something new. So that's what took me to regression therapy, because regression hypnotherapy takes you back to the source of a problem. So if somebody's feeling fear in the present environment, let's say you walk into a situation and you feel afraid, my experience is that the fear is really not about that situation.
It's connected to something else.
That situation is a trigger that's reminding your inner mind of something that's unresolved. And the mind's always trying to resolve it for you. So it keeps showing you the fear until you resolve it.
So this is why people keep having the same, I'm on the remedial plan in life. People keep having the same lessons over and over. You're like, when am I going to get over that?
When you learn the lesson.
Duh.
And the lesson keeps coming back louder
Yeah,
until
I know.
you get the lesson. And if you don't get the lesson in this lifetime, you get another chance. You get to learn the next
What
lifetime.
about that? Isn't that great? Well, actually, so I want to tell our audience, so you were very gracious because we knew you were coming on the show. So you actually gave me a session last week, 5 days ago.
That's true.
And so you want to talk about that?
I'd love to. I'd love to hear what you thought about it.
So you hypnotized me, and we picked. I'm not going to go into details.
No, I'm
on
going
the
to correct you on that.
Oh, okay.
I didn't hypnotize you.
Oh, okay. What do you say?
So you can never hypnotize anybody.
Okay.
Because you can never control anybody. But what I can do is create an environment, and then you allow yourself to have an experience. So you put yourself into whatever state you felt comfortable with. And it had nothing to do with me except that I created an environment.
I'm glad you clarified that because just for our audience, Michael did say that before you created that environment. You did explain that to me, that's what was happening.
When I work with people, we're a team together. So it's up to you to get what you want to get, and if anything good happened from what we did together, you should take the credit because you did it. I didn't do it. I just created the environment for change to happen, but you decided to make the change if you changed anything. Yeah,
well, you know what? I had gone through this process once or twice before. Actually, once with another woman, and once before I went to one of Brian Weiss's workshops.
You mentioned that.
And that was in a room full of 100 people, so that's a whole different experience. True. But one thing I will say is I did very much appreciate the way you approached it because you did explain everything very thoroughly. You know, just as we've talked a little bit about the mind, you know, you kind of educated me and prepped me, and then really just gave me some cues and created the environment that I did get into a very relaxed state.
Right.
And we had ahead of time decided, I'm not going to go into detail on it, but this isn't true confessions, but I did pick a very significant emotionally charged issue that I've been working on a lot for a long time, you know, related to my family. And so I was surprised because I was originally trained as a therapist. Explored a lot of different modalities, and I was surprised at some things that surfaced actually, and some images and stuff that that we discussed, and so that was 5 days ago, and it was fortuitous because then 2 days after that I went on a retreat over the weekend, so I had a lot of time to just kind of process and be with it. And I will say that I immediately after the session felt much lighter, much just kind of at peace, and just I felt okay, with the issue. And I'm processing it at different levels since then. But the thing that I really appreciated about the way that you worked is not only the time that you spent up front, and you have a gentle manner kind of in the session, but afterwards, which I had never seen this before, you sent me some documentation.
Right.
So some people think it's all, just the experience of it, but then you sent me some procedures and some very, what I call sort of tactical things that I can do to reinforce that positive experience. So
let me explain to the audience why I do that.
Yeah.
So in hypnotherapy, we study the mind and how the mind works. And one of the laws of the mind is that it defaults to the strongest impression, whether it's a positive or negative.
Yeah.
The mind doesn't care. It just defaults to the way it's programmed, the way you programmed it.
Yeah.
So you had a negative impression in there. So we did a little exploration. We found some of the beginnings of that. And we did an interaction to release some of that, change some of that feeling about it so that it wasn't so strong.
Yeah.
But if you want to really make a change, you got to replace that with something that you want for yourself. So we did a little discussion in the session, and we looked at what you want for yourself.
Yeah.
And we put that in the form of some affirmations and some ways that you could take yourself back to that experience in your mind to make it stronger.
Yeah.
And if you practice doing that over and over and over again, then before too long, that becomes the strongest impression. Now your mind defaults to that.
Yeah.
You don't have to think about it anymore. So instead of
reprogramming it.
Yeah, it's like you're reprogramming it by giving yourself the experience. So thought follows, energy follows thought. So whatever you're thinking about is where the energy goes and what becomes stronger, which can be very upsetting to people, because sometimes I tell people, why don't you take a day and keep a journal what you're actually saying to yourself all day long. And you'd be surprised what people say to themselves.
All sorts of things.
Oh,
right.
This isn't going to work.
Yeah.
I'm not
good. A lot of negative
I'm
self-talk.
not okay.
Yeah.
Whatever. Every time you say that, that strengthens that impression. And you're telling yourself you want that stronger. So it's important to be mindful about how you talk to yourself and how you feel. But sometimes it's hard to change that without discovering how they got put together.
Well, and this is what you and I were talking the other day about, the book and the movie The Secret, which is, they make it sound like just visualize it in positive thoughts and that's it. But a lot of people have not had good experiences with it. Can you speak to that for this very reason?
Well, and I like the ideas in that book and so on, but it's like if there's something there and you try to stick something on top of it, what you're sticking on top of it doesn't go away. It's because you stuck it on top of it. But if you do an interaction with it and you learn something from it, then you can, then you have fertile ground to place something new on top of it. That's the way I look at it. And we're here to learn and release our issues and learn to be better people, to be better human beings.
So the concepts in The Secret are very grounded and solid and all good stuff. It's just that sometimes people aren't always working at the level or with a different mind around the strength of the impression.
You can say you want so-and-so all you want, but if you have a negative impression that says, I'm not worthwhile,
that's going to override that.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So it kind of reminds me of, I don't know if you saw Saturday Night Live, not to be irreverent at all, but I forget what skit, but the guy used to look in the mirror and talk about, you know, how great he was to, like, you know, talk himself up. You know, but so is it like that? You know, like, you're great.
I didn't see that skit, but it sounds funny.
Yeah. It was just about, you know, his self-esteem and talking himself up and just, you know, giving himself a pep talk, but it's actually a bit more than that, right?
I think it's more valuable for people to see where they don't feel okay, so that they can heal that. So rather than try to put a mask up or something that says, oh, I'm okay, I'm good, I'm great, and it's really not true, better to look at, well, where don't I feel okay? Oh, something happened and all of a sudden I don't feel worthy? What's that about?
Like, to go deep into that.
Where did that come from?
But, you know, we live in a culture that people always want to be okay, and if they're not okay, they want a pill to be okay in a second.
That is a faulty thought form, in my point of view. So they learn somewhere it's not okay to make a mistake. It's not okay, you have to be great or good all the time. That's really hard to be genuine if that's the impression that you have. And in our society, that happens a lot. Where it's not okay to just fall down. And it's so silly, because anybody who's been a parent and you've seen your child grow up when they were around 1 or whenever it is they learn how to walk, they fall down all the time. And as a parent, if you don't say, you stupid, you fell down, right? You're supportive, you know, and they figure it out.
Well, but we tend to have more allowance for kids because developmentally, that's okay. That's kind of where they should be. We're not as forgiving as adults, I think.
And if we were, we could heal the planet. Because if we had compassion for people, just like we do for kids, and say, wow, you know, this person's in pain, this person's struggling, we could really help each other. That's the way I look at it.
So where did you go for your hypnotherapy training?
Well, I studied, there's a place called the Wellness Institute. They're based in Washington State, but they do come around the country. And I studied my first hypnotherapy course, I think, in 1999. And then I took their internship, which is a 2-year program. And then one of the teachers there also is very much into spirituality like I am. And I've been studying with her ever since. And
so you're ongoing.
I'm ongoing. I love to study. I'm a schoolaholic. But I have over 3,000 hours of training when I kind of added it up. But I just love to learn new things and study and find out and keep working on myself in terms of learning things. You know, it's not bad to have stuff to work on. There's nothing to hide about it.
Because if we didn't have anything to work on, we wouldn't be here, right?
That's true.
That's it.
That's true.
We'd be fully baked. There'd be nothing to do.
The way I look at it, if you cut your finger, it's not a big tragedy, right? Unless you're a hemophiliac.
Then it's a real tragedy.
But if you're not, you know what to do, right? You
right.
wash your hand, you put a bacitracin on, you put a Band-Aid on. If there's a splinter, you take it out. You know what to do. But if you have an emotional upset, a lot of people don't know what to do with that. So they hide it or they block it.
Well, we're not trained very well.
Right, so that's
educated.
That's what I'm hoping to teach people
Yeah.
is what to do with these. So you might work with me for a little while. It's not mean you're never going to have another problem or another emotional upset, but now you know what to do with it, and it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
It becomes a learning opportunity.
Yeah.
That's what I like to teach.
So what's been your greatest challenge with this work? You make it sound so easy.
It is easy. Well, for me, I really want to work with people who are already kind of attuned to spirituality and on the path in some way or another, and I can help them deepen that process. So I don't usually work with people who...
You have to convince them of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not the right person to work with if that's where you are. There are people that are the right person to work with. Everybody has their kind of niche.
So you're not necessarily into the weight reduction for hypnotherapy necessarily?
No, but I mean, I do that with people. I actually have a really nice program. It combines a couple of things together. But if someone comes for weight reduction, we're going to do a regression. I want to find out how come they're holding on to the weight.
Okay.
Where did that start? What message did they get? And it'd be interesting what we find out.
So you like to go to the root cause.
I do.
You really knock it out once and for all.
Well, why should we dabble around?
Right.
Let's
Yeah,
get
let's
right
really
to
get
it.
to the heart of the matter.
And it's a much faster process. So you can get a lot of healing. I mean, we just did one session, right?
Yeah.
And you had a big experience in just one session.
So yeah, because actually, when we were meeting, you said you consider it the fast path to healing. So say more about that.
Well, I like all kinds of healings, and I've been to talk therapists, for instance, and I think that's really appropriate for certain things. But that moves a lot more slowly, and it's working with the conscious mind, and so it's for slower change. And this is faster because it goes into the places where you write the programs, and it helps you begin to really change or shift those programs. And then I give you the tools to do that and make the change.
It sounds like a software program.
It is. That is how
your hard drive.
brain works.
We got to replace that hard drive.
You know what? Your brain kind of works like that. What I tell people and what I told you was that you're responsible for your own feelings. People do inappropriate things for people. You know, people get abused verbally, physically, sexually. I mean, none of those things are good things. They're inappropriate things. But what you feel in response to it, you put there. Nobody made you feel that way. So I'll give you an example in my own life. My father was an angry guy. And I didn't know it as a child, but he really didn't like his job, and it was very stressful for him. And he'd come home and he'd yell all the time. He'd yell at my mother, he'd yell at us. There's a lot of anger going on in that household. There was 3 of us, I'm the youngest. We all reacted to it differently. My reaction was fear. I felt afraid, and the response I chose was to make no waves, no confrontation, blend into the background. That was my strategy I learned as a child. Right? No one told me to act that way. In fact, my brother was belligerent. He chose a different reaction. So the reaction I chose was mine. But here's how it works. When I got to be in my 20s, someone would walk in the room and they'd be angry, and all of a sudden I'd feel all those same feelings as a child. I'd start saying, okay, don't make waves, no confrontation, blend into the background.
They probably didn't serve you.
Totally inappropriate response most of the time. So, but I didn't understand what was happening until I did this work. After I worked through those issues, I don't feel those things anymore when somebody walks in the room and they're angry. That doesn't bother me in the least.
So you were able to gain awareness about it and kind of release it through this process.
So I could be in present time with what's really happening rather than be triggered into a past experience. And that's what I like to help people with. And those are the programs that we write in our mind, and it goes into the inner mind. And our conscious mind doesn't remember it.
So you've worked with a lot of people over at least now, it sounds like 12, 13 years. So what's been one, just give us, we've got about 2 minutes left, just give us like a gem. What's a gift, like one kernel or a story that's really been impactful for you?
Oh boy, there's so many. There's so many. I would say this was an interesting case. Someone came to me for a past life regression. They actually, because they were having physical symptoms and they thought it was related to an emotional issue. And we did 5 past life regressions in a row. And in each one, he was a soldier of some sort. He was a soldier in the Union Army. He was a soldier he was a barbarian kind of raiding places, and he was in Rome. He was a general in Rome, and he had all these war stories, which is interesting because he's a pacifist in this lifetime. But then his most recent past life, he was in Nazi Germany, and he was on the other side, and he was being abused by the warriors. So all this was a learning thing, and what was interesting was that in his mind, even though he's a pacifist in this lifetime, he related being a soldier with honor, because in Rome that was honorable, and it was hard for him to let go of the honor piece. And in a lot of his death scenes, he had a lot of congestion and things like that, which was his current problem. So after doing all of that, he was able to really make a big shift in the not only the way he felt, but his physical. So
it changed his physical.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah. So
wow.
If I'd never had anybody come to me and want to do 5 past life regressions in a row.
Never.
No, never.
So obviously he was really.
He was really driven. He really knew that was.
He was using that military to channel focus.
Right. He was in that military
I was like, gonna get it done. Here's the charge.
And what was interesting, he's a pacifist, so he gets really angry about people who make war. And I said, well, tell me, what's the difference between that and the warrior energy you had before?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Interesting.
It's the same energy used for a different purpose.
Wow.
Like, oh.
Yeah. Wow, you probably have a million stories. We could go on, but it's been really helpful and enlightening. If somebody was interested in a free consultation, just learning more about hypnotherapy, or just talking to you about anything that was interesting on the show, how might they reach you?
Just give me a call. My number's, I'm in Westchester. It's 914-218-9000.
Can you say that again?
914-218-9000. The name of my company is Alternative Choices. And I'm happy to just talk to you and explain something, or if you have a question or you think I might be able to help you, let's have a conversation and see if that's true.
Okay.
See how you feel about it.
All right. Thanks for coming on the show, Michael.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm Susan Shaner with Community Forum. Until next time, thanks for joining us.